for most events, including so-called debates, the Vermont independent candidates are allowed to participate. So people are starting to think about it. And one of the honchos there, who has been instrumental in pushing this for as long as 7 years now, I guess, believes that they can get a majority of the legislature to be for free Vermont as early as 2015. I told him to his face that he was dreaming, but at least that seems to enter the world of possibility. There is a strong group in Texas as well. There is a modest group in Alaska, which also sees itself as a separate identity from the rest of the country. There are no fewer than 8 groups in Hawaii, all working for the independence of the Hawaiian kingdom. And of course that's the problem. There's 8 of them. And they have not been successful. They don't want to join with each other. And so they have not been politically successful. But they make a lot of noise. And they have, in fact, helped to revive the Hawaiian culture over the last 10 years, let's say. A distinct movement to put forth Hawaiian culture and with the literature and the music of old Hawaii, the Hawaiian kingdom. In various parts of the South, there are strong pockets of people talking about secession. And just last year, on July 4th, which is National Secession Day, a fellow in Charleston began something called secessionnews.com, secessionnews.com, which is a daily drudge report kind of compendium of all the things that have been said about secession in the preceding day. He manages to post now about 2 items a day of somebody talking about secession anywhere around the internet. And there are increasingly numbers of groups that are talking about the secession on the internet. There's a guy in Georgia who has a nicely named group called Dump DC. And what that means, and he ends every posting there with, who's going to be the first to secede? There are groups in Texas. There has begun something called the Southern National Congress, which has not yet become explicitly secessionist, although that seems to be where everybody there is leading. The idea of secession, at least in many quarters, is no longer looked on as being illegal and unconstitutional and traitorous. People are starting to look at it. And according to one scholar in Emory University, there's more talk about secession now than at any time since 1865. And I think it has real political force that can play out over the next decade or so. Whether it can be successful, I wouldn't want to say at this point, but I can say that it's growing, and an increasing number of people come to see that if there is going to be any change, it'll have to go that way. If there is going to be any salvation from the empire, the Titanic as it sinks, we better start creating our own lifeboats and thinking about how to empower them and to distance them from the empire. And particularly as the empire puts increasing financial burden on us, and as the empire shows itself increasingly impossible to solve the various problems, as the empire becomes Katrinaized wherever it touches anything. It can't fight a war, it can't create a health plan. It is increasingly inept and corrupt, and that is increasingly obvious. And that's partly the reason for the Tea Party people. They don't understand what's going on, and most of them believe that they can elect somebody who would go and change things. But at the core of their anger is this sense that a federal government in the hands of corporate and financial interests trying to establish a system for 305 million people, coast to coast, is simply incapable. It cannot do it. And it will, like all empires before it, it will collapse in its attempts to do so. And if it's going to collapse, maybe we better think about ways not to go down with it. And so that's what I'd offer you as something to think about. If we cannot have Katua as an independent nation, and I don't rule it out absolutely, but if that seems too difficult to achieve, then I think we could think about a North Carolina secession, which would inevitably devolve power to upland and lowland. And in that process of upland, a bioregional element can enter into daily political work. And I have started something called the Middlebury Institute.org, for those of you who are interested, with the mission to try to put out the idea of secession around this country, with the conviction that there is no other way to have a democratic and a prosperous future for us. And with the conviction that because it is not attempting to do away with capitalism, or at least not at the start, it's not attempting to create a revolution. It is merely attempting to use existing institutions to put forth a doable and exciting kind of a vision. And I would welcome all of you into the cause. Thank you. And I'd be happy to take questions about that or anything else that you'd like to